Hello everyone. Today our video is going to be about macromolecules. Okay, so specifically we're going to focus on carbohydrates today, but a macromolecule is a large molecule, and so here the word macro means large, whereas micro is the opposite and means small. So macromolecule is a large molecule. We have four main ones in our bodies that make up our cells. So we also call them biological molecules. There are four main biological molecules, and oops, and they are these four things right here. They are called biological molecules because they make up our cells, right? So prokaryotes are bacteria, but eukaryotes, these are like plants and animals. But either way, in either types of these two cells, they're all made up of those four things: carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. Okay, so let us continue. So we have to know some terms in order to really understand how macromolecules or biological molecules work. So we need to know the word monomer and the word polymer. Okay, so it says a monomer is like a single link in a long chain, which is called the polymer. So I have some pictures for you here. That would be a monomer. Okay, so mono meaning one, right? Forgot to mention that. And poly meaning many. So if we have a single link, then and we have a bunch of them and we chain them together, then we are going to get a polymer. Okay, so a single link in a chain is like a monomer, and the whole chain itself is like a polymer. And so all of the four macromolecules that we're talking about, well, yeah, kind of, are polymers, meaning that they have individual pieces, but when we link the individual pieces together, we get a macromolecule. So an individual piece is not macro, but the whole thing is macro, right? The whole thing is large together. So monomer, polymer. You're going to have to know that pretty well. Here's another example. If we have a single Lego, this is going to be a monomer, and our whole Lego dude put together would be like a polymer. Now, again, the chain is a better example because the macromolecules that we're talking about, carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids, these things are like more like chains rather than like a big like dude. But the analogy still, I think, is okay. Okay, so monomers and polymers. All right, so number one, let's get right into carbohydrates. We're going to, number one, because we're going to do four of them, right? So the monomer, this individual single chain, or the individual single link in the chain for monomer, is called a monosaccharide. And so when we're talking about monosaccharides, we're really talking about simple sugars. Okay, and simple sugars are usually the ones that taste sweet. They are in anything that is sweet, maybe in your ice cream or in your cereal or in candy, stuff like that. And monomers really only have one function, which is going to be for energy. Okay, so what you're seeing here on the screen is a single monomer. This is actually glucose. Okay, glucose is perhaps the most common monomer in the world because this is what plants make during photosynthesis, is glucose. And so when we have one of these, it's a single monosaccharide. Okay, glucose is an example of a monosaccharide. We can chain them together though if we have a bunch of them, like so, and this whole thing, three, isn't really that many, but if we have 100 of them, we will call it a polysaccharide. Okay, so a single one is a monosaccharide. Many of them are a polysaccharide. So here I will continue that. So once we start really chaining them together, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you have a bunch more, and then you can make these fibers. This would be a polysaccharide, okay, when we have many of them together. Okay, so monomer is a monosaccharide, and the polymer, when we have a long chain like this, is a polysaccharide. And that is what complex sugars are. So when people talk about eating complex carbs, like in bread or potatoes, those are long chains of sugars like this. When people talk about eating simple sugars, you might be talking about like drinking orange juice or a Coke. there's lots of simple sugars in those, which are single individual little pieces. Okay, so we have to know those, get those written down, perhaps draw some pictures, or maybe at least a chain, right? So you can draw for monomer a single thing, and maybe draw for polymer, make these connected, a longer chain like that. Okay. All right. So let's go into some types. I just want to show you some examples. Okay. So here again, if you didn't recognize this, hopefully you can eventually. That one is glucose. Okay. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sided sugar. Over here, we're going to have fructose, which is the sugar that's found in fruit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sided. Okay. But still really similar in that we only have carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens in both of them. So these are both monosaccharides because they're a single chain or a single link, just one piece. Over here, we have something maybe a little more complex, but still a simple sugar. This is called a disaccharide. Di means two. And this one here is sucrose, and this is table sugar. So this is what like you would put in cake, or cake, yeah, or in if you're baking, or if you would if you're making Kool-Aid. Okay, this is what you would put in that, just table sugar. Okay, so simple sugars are monosaccharides. We have functions. Let's write some functions. So short-term energy storage. This is what it does for us. Okay, it when you eat it, it only lasts for a short amount of time. The energy that it gives you. That's why you can like have something really sugary and have a sugar crash, because it doesn't, provide you energy for that long. Examples in food: sugar for your Kool-Aid. In fruit, anything sweet, like we talked about. And then lastly, our specific examples, like I just wrote, we got glucose, fructose, sucrose. Know a couple examples of the actual names of sugars. Okay. All right, get that down. Pause it if you need to. All right, complex sugars. So again, we have two kinds of sugars here. We had A, so this is simple sugars, and now we're going on to B, complex sugars. And the two main, so how I have this set up here is that we have two main functions of these complex sugars, which is structure and energy storage. So structure is just what it sounds like. So not only are sugars used for energy, but sugars can be used to build things, kind of as building blocks. And so a really good example of a complex sugar is called cellulose. And cellulose is the main component of cell walls in plants. So cell walls in plants. Okay, so make this kind of T-chart like thing here and get some of these down. Another cool example is called chitin. Okay, and chitin is a complex sugar. A complex sugar found in insect exoskeletons. So when you stomp on a bug and it crunches, it's because it has an exoskeleton, like a hard shell, and that is made of a complex carb. So all of the things we're talking about here are kind of like chain-like molecules, right? We are not talking about this. We're talking about when we put them together and make them into long chains. All of the things here. And then, so as for energy storage, let's see, in plants, we have starch. Okay, so this is energy storage in plant. I'll just write this in parentheses. Energy storage in plants. Okay, most green plants make some sort of starchy thing for energy storage. This might be in fruit. Actually, let's go over some main ones. So wheat, potatoes, potatoes, rice. You've heard of cornstarch, right? All of these things have starch in them, which are, again, these long chain molecules. Okay. And they don't taste particularly sweet when you eat them, right? Like, can you imagine just biting into a potato? That wouldn't be super delicious. Okay. And then the next main one that I want to talk about is not for plant storage, but for animal storage, and that is going to be called glycogen. And this is in animals. And so glycogen is how we, as humans or any animals, actually, as we are animals, store little pieces, little monosaccharides. When we eat a bunch of sugars and we don't need to use all of them right away, we store them as glycogen in our cells. Okay. So also long chain molecules. Okay. All right. I think that's good for that. Get this stuff down. Pause it if you need. Okay, let's just do some quick questions. Structure or energy? Fructose, the sugar that makes fruit sweet. That is energy. Structure or energy? Cellulose makes up cell walls. This is structure or energy. Structure, right? Makes up cell walls. Actually, this is why cell walls plant cells are often blocky in shape. Is because they have a hard cell wall that doesn't allow it to be really circular. Chitin. Okay, so this exoskeleton that's being shed right here, that is obviously structure. And then starch. Starch functions as energy storage for the potato plant. Okay. All right, cool. So that's it for now, for at least for carbohydrates. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you get all them notes down. Okay, thank you.